Welcome in. You're listening to Locked On Now NHL, local experts on the biggest stories on the ice. I'm your host, Kainani Stevens. Thank you for making Locked On Now your first listen every single weekday. We've got a bunch of action from last night in hockey, but we're going to start off with our biggest game.
The biggest game.
The Colorado Avalanche dropped a season-high 9 goals over on the Kings in a decisive win. Our Locked On Avalanche hosts recap all of the records and a flawless outing for Colorado.
The Colorado Avalanche with maybe their most dominant performance of the season, and it came at the expense of the Los Angeles Kings fighting for a playoff spot. A 9-3 victory, the most points the Avalanche have scored this season. I mean, where do you start? Nathan MacKinnon with 5 points, including a hat trick. Cale Makar with 4 points, 3 assists. I think the only one who didn't score was Darcy Kemper in goal. It was just from the very beginning to the very end, complete dominance. There's nothing else you can really say.
The Avalanche also set franchise records when it comes to wins in a season with 53. They don't do it quietly. Yeah. Perfect on the power play. Honestly, a really great game beginning to end for the Avalanche, and Nathan MacKinnon on national TV shows why he is the best hockey player on this planet.
We joked around the other day about if the Avalanche would kind of lie down and let the Kings have this game due to our dislike of the Vegas Golden Knights to keep them out and, give LA a couple more points. Yeah, that wasn't going to happen. The Colorado Avalanche put up a Ferris Bueller, as we say, 9 goals, and they turn right around and play another one the next night.
The Canadiens looked checked out as they dropped their third straight against the Blue Jackets this time. They controlled the puck from start to finish in Columbus. Locked On Canadiens details all that went wrong against the Blue Jackets.
The Canadiens seem to be in off-season mode once again. Hi everyone, this is Laura Sava of Locked On Canadiens, and the Habs have just lost 3 games in a row, this one losing 5-1 to the Columbus Blue Jackets. The entire game, they were completely listless. This is not the Montreal Canadiens we saw when Martin St. Louis first took over. Among their chief problems was that a lot of players just simply were in the wrong position all throughout the night. Any player that you could identify as having a bad game was because they were losing their man, they weren't winning the foot race, they were literally in the wrong place at every time. Not just in the wrong place at the wrong time, wrong place at every time. Another issue that they had that they are going to need to work on, it is something that has plagued them over the last couple of seasons, they are not very strong on face-offs. Now, face-offs are not as important as they used to be, but they are still a key component of NHL games today, and so they are going to have to be first on the puck, whether it's winning a foot race, whether it's winning a face-off, whether it is literally just being positionally more sound than the other team. They're going to have to start doing that if they're going to find any kind of success next season. So this is something that you can add to the laundry list of things that Martin St. Louis is going to need to fix, assuming he comes back, which all signs point to he will. For more on this, check out Locked On Canadiens. We are available wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on YouTube.
The Rangers look well-rounded with a 4-0 victory over the Flyers last night. Our Locked On Rangers host goes in-depth about all of the positives from the win on Wednesday.
Hey, what is going on, hockey fans? It's John Chick of Locked On New York Rangers. The Rangers just wrapping up a decisive 4-0 road victory against the Philadelphia Flyers, a game that saw the Rangers really just dominate in all aspects. And I think the most positive sign from this game, or the most positive development, is the very simple fact that Kaapo Kakko scored 2 goals. He missed a good chunk of the season. I believe the final count was 41 games with an injury. He comes back tonight. I thought that line got off to a nice start for the Rangers. And they did so despite the fact that the Rangers themselves didn't really get off to the best start. I thought the first 8 or 10 minutes of this game, the Rangers were, a half step slow, and then obviously they turned it on and basically just started dominating. But to see Kaapo Kakko, start to find the scoring touch just before the playoffs, very, very encouraging development for the New York Rangers. Another encouraging development is that Alex Georgiev continues his resurgence here. He was really up against it earlier this year, and now has posted 6 consecutive wins. I think now 2 shutouts in that span as well. And the other big storyline from this is that Alexis Lafreniere was a healthy scratch. Now, I think this is more a situation where, the Rangers are giving him a little bit of a breather. He's never played an 82-game season. Obviously, the Rangers are going to be in the playoffs. So I think we'll see a little bit more of this where players that really need a break or could use a breather are probably going to get one down the stretch here. We'll see how it goes. But either way, we're going to be talking about that and a whole lot else on the next episode of Locked on New York Rangers. Do not miss it.
The Flyers could not find the back of the net, and that's not surprising considering how beat up Philadelphia is at this point in the season. Locked on Flyers details what went wrong in Philly.
Hi, this is Rachel Donner with your Locked On Flyers postgame quick reaction to the Flyers 4-0 shutout loss to the New York Rangers. The Flyers came into this game pretty broken with a ton of injuries, sidelining enough guys to require 3 emergency recalls from Lehigh Valley, including goaltender Felix Sandstrom, who will likely be competing for the backup role next season for the Flyers. Unfortunately, they did not do Sandstrom any favors with key defensive breakdowns, leading to 3 of the 4 Rangers goals. And it wasn't quite as much of a disaster as last game against Washington. These mistakes were big enough to leave Rangers wide open out front for easy high danger chances that went in. And then they ended the game unable to maintain possession, giving up the empty netter on a 6-on-4 power play. It's not like the Flyers didn't have their own chances at times during this game. The first period started off well. Travis Konechny had a solid shorthanded chance, but they just couldn't solve Georgiev at the other end. So unfortunately, the Flyers have another loss at the hand of the New York Rangers. For more on this game and the Flyers all year long, tune into the Locked On Flyers podcast.
That's going to do it for this edition of Locked On Now NHL. Thank you for making Locked On Now your first listen every single weekday. Make sure you check out Locked On NHL and your team's Locked On podcast as well. I'm Kainani Stevens. This has been Locked On Now.